Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. In this project, we'll be creating a calculator using JavaScript and some cool CSS techniques. It'll allow us to create a calculator that looks like this. The buttons highlight when you hover over them. You can do simple operations. You could also type from your keyboard, and you can use decimals, just pretty much everything that a normal calculator can do. So hopefully you guys can follow along, and I really enjoyed this project, and I'll see you guys at the end. Okay everyone, let's get into the project. Here's the Odin Project pulled up with the assignment. I've already reviewed it. In order to do some styling, we're going to be using a utility framework called Tailwind CSS. A lot of pros and cons to Tailwind, but it'll make it so it's a lot easier to style our calculator how we want to. We'll be using what's called the CDN to do that, and I'll set that up in a little bit in our project. Let's open up VS Code. I already have a directory created, and we'll just be creating our files. So let's make our first one index.html. For all the other rows of numbers. Okay, after all of our files are made, let's make our boilerplate for our HTML. Okay, let's grab the CDN, type in Tailwind CSS CDN. A CDN isn't great for production. However, for a small scale project like this, I think it'll work perfectly. CDN is just going to be this line of code right here, a script, and we're going to paste that at the top, and that's all we're going to have to do. Let's also link to our style sheet, and at the very bottom, let's link to our JavaScript. We're just going to add some styles to the body element. We could actually technically probably do all of this with Tailwind CSS. Okay, in the body tag, let's create a div called calc body. This is just going to be the background of the calculator. We're going to want to set up some styles as well with Tailwind. So what's really cool about Tailwind, we could set a lot of attributes and we set them as classes. So we could say max WLG, which means the max width is going to be large. And we could say rounded for rounded corners. We could say overflow hidden. That'll prevent there from being any scroll bars on it. We could put a shadow 2XL. That'll put a box shadow around this whole element, and it's going to be a very large shadow since it's 2XL. We could set the background pink 700. So all of the primary colors are in here. They have a value of 1 to 900. Where the lower the value, the lighter the color is, the higher the value, the darker the color is. We could also put a opacity on the background, and let's just do 75. That's 75%. Gradient. So we're gonna have a background gradient to the top right. So that's what this TR is. And we can say from gray 800. And let's give it a class of flex as well. Okay, if we open this up in our live server, we probably won't see anything because there's an empty div. So yep, there's nothing here. However, if we just type something into our div, we should see that up here. There we go. So now we see just a little pink square that says hey. For example, if we put a div in here and we gave it a class of padding in the X direction at 8, and then we could do the padding of the Y direction as 8. We now have a div that's a square. We'll have a padding in the X direction and the Y direction of 8. 8 isn't pixels. It's a unit used by Tailwind CSS to make all of your website standardized. Let's do another div with a class of flex. Okay, we're gonna have to think about how we want to structure this calculator. We're going to want like an output area where all of our numbers and everything is outputted to. We're gonna want a button to the right that clears the calculator. Then we want all of our numbers and all of our operators. So right here, div.output. When we're designing this calculator, we're going to want to think about how the calculator functions. We need essentially to store two values, whatever our current value is, and if there was a previous value, we need to store that as well. Just in case we have 2 plus 2 equals 4, we need to save that 4 somewhere. Let's put a div. So if we have a previous number, it'll be up here. Otherwise, we'll have a current number, and we'll just leave this at 0. Okay, outside of this div, to the right of it, let's put a div, or no, let's make a button with a class of clear, and we'll just say AC for all clear. You'll notice this button doesn't have any stylings because that's the thing with Tailwind is we have to assign classes to this. So let's do that right now. Let's start creating a little bit of styles for these two elements that we have right here. Let's put a div with a class of flex. So if I put a Tailwind class of flex, it's really as if I'm saying display flex. each of these elements separated by a space is a different class. I think those styles work for now. Let's start adding the numbers and everything. So let's make a div with a class of flex. Let's also put MB margin bottom of 1. Inside of this div, we're going to put 7, 8, 9, as well as the divide sign. So let's do a button, the class of number, and the divide. Let's not do a class of number. Let's do a class of operator. And now we're going to want to set some styles for these buttons as well. And I think I'm going to keep most of this. Let's just copy this all the way to here. I kind of like how that button's turning out. However, if you notice, in our HTML, like these classes and these divs, the names are getting extremely long, and we're going to have to copy and paste this for any number class. So I think it would be a little bit easier if we use JavaScript to manually add all of these classes. So let's make another JavaScript file. Let's name it add styles.js, and we're going to call this after main.js. So let's do script source equals add styles.js. And in here, just to show you what we can do, we can say that const body class is equal to okay, so we've defined a class similar to how we were doing in our HTML, just a long string with spaces between each class. And we're grabbing the body element with the document query selector. So if we say body class dot split, this will convert this string into an array, and this split right here, so we have a space. So every time there's a space in this string, it's going to create a new element in that array. And then so we could say for each, and we could say for each. You can't say class because class is a reserved name by JavaScript, but we could do like CLS. We could say bdy.classlist.add CLS, like that. Now if we open up our code, you could see we have this effect going on. However, not exactly a fan of it repeating itself right here. For some reason, the body element isn't the full height, and that's because I made a typo right here, so I just need to say VH. Now it shouldn't be repeating itself, and this looks a lot better. Everything's centered vertically and horizontally, so we could actually grab all of this as well out of here, and we could do the same thing. So we could say and now, yeah, it's the same thing. Nothing has changed. And let's start doing that for our buttons as well. If there's small classes like this, I'm not going to worry about it, but this class is, let's take this out and do the same thing. That'll clean up our HTML quite a bit. Okay, we're going to do something slightly different for the buttons because we're going to have buttons that are numbers and operators, and this one's clear. So we're going to set up a base class for the buttons that will apply to all of the buttons, but each of those separate classes, if it's an operator or a number or like a decimal or clear, they'll have their unique styling. So let's grab all of the buttons. So we can say const Okay, I'm wondering why this guy isn't wider, so let's see what I did. And I think I made a typo. This should be a W. Now if I save that, then it should take up all the space that we have available. But the 7 is off. Deleted a number on accident. Now if we refresh, we should see that here. Cool. Now let's do another section just like this that we have. So I'm just going to copy and paste. So this will be 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and then like a decimal, 0, and plus, I think. Let's change the classes. Let's put this as a decimal and this one as equal. Now in our add styles, we can add classes for both of those. Perfect. So I think the styling's pretty much almost done. Actually, I think all the styling's done. Now we just need to tie JavaScript in so we can make this calculator actually work. Let's set up a few global variables as well as grab DOM elements so that we can modify them. Okay, we're first going to set up so we can use the buttons to make calculations. After that, we'll add window event listeners to our key presses so we can use our keyboard to calculate as well. So first, let's start listening to anytime a number button is pressed. So we could say number buttons dot for each button. And now we're going to fire a function anytime a button is clicked. So let's name that function handle number. Let's make that function right now. Say function handle number. It's going to take in a number. We need to put a period right here so that we specify we're grabbing a class. And we might need to change what we're naming our variables right here. Let's just say current num and previous num. There we go. Now you can see whatever button we click, we can see that in our console, so that means our JavaScript is picking it up. Let's also get rid of this error message. In our index.html, let's put a script above this. So in the script, let's just say console.warn, and we're just going to make this an empty function. So as a precaution, don't ever do that in production. What's going on with that warning is it's telling us that we're using Tailwind, but it doesn't see a lot of the classes that we're adding with JavaScript. If you were doing this in production, you would be using npm. The whole environment would look a lot different. We're just doing this for a personal project that is non-commercial, very small scale. So doing this doesn't matter. However, in production, never set console.warn to an empty function. Bad practice. I'm just doing it just to get rid of the console error. Okay, let's get rid of this console log. And let's say current number plus equal to number. And let's also update the DOM. So we can say current display number dot text content is equal to current number. And save. Now we should see that get updated up here. Let's also make it so you can't type unlimited numbers. Let's just make it so you only can type in 12 or so numbers. So we could say if current number dot length is less than equal to 11, then we can add it. Otherwise, nothing will happen. Let's add a function as well for all of our operators. So we could say operators for each etn So in our function handle operator, we just want to essentially set operator to whatever we're passing in. We could just say operator is equal to op, just like that. And now this is what the previous number is, and this is what the current number is. I would also like to see what the operator is, so we could just say plus operator. If I said 6 plus, we could see it right there. Put a space in here as well. Let's make a function to handle equal. So we're just going to say function calculate. Now we need to check what our operator is to determine if we can calculate. We also need to make sure that there's two numbers. Before we start adding anything, let's also just convert our previous numbers into numbers. So we could just say number, or we could say previous number is equal to number of previous number. So if it's plus, then we're just going to, let's set the previous number equal to previous number plus current number. And then let's also display the results. So we want to clear out the previous number, previous display number dot text content is equal to this. 55 plus 33, and it's not equaling for some reason. I added the event listener to the wrong button. We need to add it equal. Okay, I think that's working so far. I think there's a few cases where we could probably break it. If I said 2 divided by 0, for example, that would break it. I'd rather have that say error instead of infinity. And we need to make sure that our decimals are working and everything. A cool little shortcut you can do, instead of doing previous number is equal to this, you could say plus equal current number. That'll actually do the same thing. Doesn't really matter how you do it, but just a cool little shortcut you can do. You could also do it for multiplication. Previous number is equal to previous number to string. We're going to convert it from a string back into, or we're going to convert it from a number back into a string. Let's say if current number is less than equal to 0, we're not going to want to calculate it actually. We're going to want to do set previous number equal to error. Cool. What happens if we do like 1 divided by 3? You'll notice this takes up a little bit too much space. Let's cut down how long the result can be. I'm going to make another function called display result. So if I say 1 divided by 3, so the number hasn't changed, but it looks like it's changed. So it's not going to, it's always going to limit how wide this can be. Let's also round the number to either the 5th or 6th decimal. Okay, now it's going to round it to like the 6th decimal, just like that. So it's not going to continue on unless, it's not going to be able to continue on into infinity. But if I did like this, then it will cut the number off and not take up too much space. Let's set up validation so you can't press equals unless there's a number for unless there's a previous and the current number. It shouldn't be too hard to do. Let's find our equal event listener, and we're just going to fire a function instead of calling the function. I could say if current number dot length, or actually I could just say if current number doesn't equal an empty string, and if previous number doesn't equal an empty string, then we can calculate it. Otherwise, nothing will happen. So if I say 5, it doesn't erase our number or anything. And let's add an event listener for our clear so we don't have to keep refreshing. So now if we clear, it just clears out the calculator. Now the next thing let's do is if I do 99 plus 1, I want to be able to times that by 6. Right now it's saying 1 times 6. I want it to be 100 times 6. Okay, so with all of this, what we just did, we can now see that the previous number, the current number becomes the previous number, and it goes up here. Previously it wasn't doing that. Can't type anything though, so we need to put a check inside of our handle number to enable me to do that. So we need to do a couple more things. Let's add functionality for the decimal, and then let's make it so we can type on our keyboard and use the calculator as well. So we need to add an event listener to the decimal. So we'll make a function called add decimal, go all the way down to the bottom and add that. Essentially, we're going to just be adding it to our current number. So we also need to check if our current number has a decimal in it. If it does, we don't want to add it. So we could say if current num dot includes a decimal. Actually, let's say if it doesn't include it, then current num plus equal decimal. And we need to update the display as well. So we could say current display number dot text content is equal to current. So 5.5 plus 0.5 should give us 6, which it does. I think all that's left is for us to add functionality for our keyboard to interact with our calculator. Let's add an event listener to the window that listens to any key press. Cool, let's save that and let's try it out. All right, I think that should be pretty much everything. Let's also just make it so we can delete a number if we want to. And I think we're done at that point. So let's make a function, handle delete. Okay, now if we're just typing in here and we hit delete, it deletes the current number. If we set it right here, it'll also delete the current number. So I think we're pretty much done. And there might be bugs or anything. Let me know if you guys run into any bugs, but I think we're done for now. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. If you guys notice, we are done with the foundations. So my next video, instead of doing a project, we're just going to do a review of the foundations, as well as go over and discuss each project that we completed. So thanks for watching, guys. Catch you in the next one. Bye.